daylight savings time is, yeah. Okay, the October 17th, 2022 meeting of the Carson City Open Space Advisory Committee. Start with attendance.
Chairperson Welch.
Present.
Vice Chair Kimbrough.
Here.
Member Inverson.
Here.
Member Martinovich.
Here.
Member Kimbrough. Member Guillory. Member Burge.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. We will start out with public comments. Lindsay, I think you had something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for Carson City. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce the committee to our brand new volunteer coordinator, Chelsea Kinchlow. She started with us about 2 months ago, and she's been busy working on lots of projects. So I want to just give her the opportunity to introduce herself to you guys.
Yes. Good evening. For the record, my name is Chelsea Kinchlow. And as Lindsay said, I am the new volunteer coordinator for Carson City Parks, Rec, and Open Space. I see a lot of familiar faces up here, and I look forward to seeing you guys out at hopeful volunteer events in the future. A little bit about me, as I've lived in Nevada for about 4 years now. I actually was the first AmeriCorps volunteer coordinator back in 2018. And then I moved to Yerington to work for Walker Basin Conservancy. And so when this became a full-time job, I jumped at it because a lot of my background is in volunteering.
Welcome, thank you.
Yeah.
Chelsea, anybody have any comments, questions? Welcome, looking forward to working with you. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment or discuss any topic relevant to open space? Yes, please come forward. If you would state your name for the record, please.
My name Craig Downer. I live over in the Indian Hills area. I'm a wildlife ecologist, and I'm often known for defending the wild horses and burros. But I have a very well-rounded education. I got my degree here at University of Nevada, my master's, and I'm an expert in the Perissodactyl of the world, members of the horse, tapir, and rhino families. And today I was out in the off-highway vehicle area near the prison hill, and I walked around for about 4 or 5 hours, and I noticed a lot of serious disturbances of the habitat, which concerns me. And I'm a 5th-generation Nevadan and you might remember Robert Downer, my father, was the county engineer and active, and my brother too. He lived here over in Douglas County, but also my uncle George Gottschalk was, I think, a supervisor here for a while, and my aunt Gertrude and cousins and whatnot, and also Gottschalk. So I think I have understanding here. I've taken a real interest in the natural world. And I've worked a lot down in the Andes, studying the endangered mountain tapir. And I have a nonprofit called the Andean Tapir Fund, but I've expanded it to include all of the Perissodactyl. And I've always been a defender of the wild horses and burros because I regard them as deeply rooted return natives in North America, which they are. Fossils and genetics prove that. And I remember the time when they did come down, they were down by the river, and I greatly objected to their being removed. But that aside, I was very disturbed to see these off-highway vehicle, I know it's being declared a off-highway vehicle recreational site called Prison Hill OHV site or something like that, and that the county has acquired the jurisdiction over this area. So I would like to say that I will fight for the preservation of that natural ecosystem. It's like a holy site. It's I mean, I wasn't all that familiar, but I'm somewhat familiar over the years. I've been there quite a bit, but I discovered a lot more about it today. And the formations, I learned a lot in my studies that when you have highly accentuated habitats, you have a multiplication of habitat space. And that gives a lot more opportunity for a lot more different species of plants and animals to find a niche. So I would just strongly emphasize that you give Mother Nature a fair shake here, and that it shouldn't just be all about man and his big domineering vegetation and soil crushing machines. And that also this is a vital watershed, and that, hey, we're in the epic of global warming today, which is life-threatening, and that you should preserve these watersheds because they are of vital importance, and that you should recognize all our fellow plants and animals that have shared this earth with us for millions of years. And we owe it to them. And I think the true recreation out there would be to emphasize the natural beauty and the natural age-old home of all those wonderful plants and animals in their ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
All right.
Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make a comment? Do we have anybody on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 4, approval of the minutes. We'll do them one at a time. First, do we have any comments, corrections for the July 18th, 2022 meeting?
Are there two of them, two sets of minutes?
Well, there's July 18th and August 16th.
Well, on page 10 on one of those, I didn't write down which one it was on. There was something to do with Vice Chair Welsh instead of Vice Chair Kimbrough. So I'm kind of stumped here about it was on page 10 of either one of those. I just wrote page 10 down. And I didn't make copies of those. So if we can't find it, maybe we don't have to make this motion.
In response to OSAC, Vice Chairperson Kimbrough's inquiry.
No, and then it says, one says Vice Chairman Welsh. It was an action.
It is on the draft minutes from August 16th. In the beginning paragraph, it says OSAC Chairperson, OSAC Vice Chairperson Welch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that will be the next. That will be the next one. So okay. No, that's fine. If we don't have any more comments, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And one abstention. I was not at the meeting, so probably shouldn't vote on that one. So now on the August 16th, 2020, any other additional comments?
Well, we'll go back in history here. Yeah, page 10, Vice Chair Kimbrough instead of Welsh. That's the only change.
Okay.
All those pages and all those notes. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved. With my change.
Okay, second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Okay, unanimous. All right. So first item for discussion only, review and discussion regarding Christopher Collins Eagle Scout project to produce and place wayfinding signage in the Carson River Canyon. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Christopher Carl Collins. I'm with Boy Scout Troop 33, and I'm here to get approval for my Eagle Scout project. I'm going to be putting up signs in the Carson River Canyon, basically kind of stating where things are, how to get there, how far they are, and just different locations around the canyon because so many people get lost, and even, emergency services get called out there, and, you can't even find people. So basically what we're doing for the project, like I said, we're going to be putting in signs. So we're going to be putting in signs starting at the kiosk. There's going to be a sign at the kiosk that basically states all the locations from the kiosk onto the end of like the road in the canyon where the trail road or the railroad used to be. And it goes all the way down to what they call track's end, which is basically where the current railroad starts. Oh yeah, sorry. And on the kiosk, it just has, you know, all the locations, and then every single sign from there on has all the locations going forward, and then at the very bottom it'll have how far backwards it is to the locations that you've already passed. So you'll have references for basically where everything is on every sign. And so there's going to be signs at pretty much every mill location. Not everyone, because there's, you know, a lot of ones that were there, but most of the significant ones. And there's going to be one at Western Smelter, and I can't. Are we doing one at White Cliffs or?
I don't think so, but if you go through your.
Yeah. Okay. Here, let's just do this. Okay, so we have one at Merrimack Mill. So you can see that has all the stuff on it and the mileages and kind of pointing to where it is. Copper Canyon, Vivian Dam, Santiago Mill, Eureka Mill, and basically credits. And we're also getting the signs from Sign Pro, the sign shop. And let's see if we can go back. Okay, so basically the history of the area, there are some mills, Morgan Mill, Brunswick Mill, Merrimack Mill, Copper Canyon Mill, Western Smelter, not a mill, but a smelter, Vivian Mill, Santiago Mill, and Eureka Mill, which are all the significant mills that were in that area, which we're going to be putting signs at. I mean, yeah. There's a lot of historical significance in the area. These mills were very, very active back, you know, in their prime. They were used for production of, the mills would collect water for the, you know, ore extraction, and they also had stamp mills as well. Yeah, more historical significance. So this is a map of the area. So basically, I don't know. Oh, there we go. So here's Merrimack Mill. That's where it starts. So the kiosk is about here, I believe, if you can see where the mouse is. So it starts about there, right after the, there's that, like, is it a mine or a quarry somewhere there? Yeah. So right after that, there's a sign, and then the kiosk is a little bit after the sign. And then going on from there, it keeps going, and it goes past, like, past the picture. I think it's like 2-ish miles to the end. And so it'll end right at where the tracks start. So for safety, no people, or like people under 18 can't really use any power equipment. So adults will have to do that stuff. And since the ground out there is very hard and rocky, we're going to be having the open space service drill the holes before we go in there, and then we'll just put the posts in and put the concrete in and fill them and, you know, do that. Proper safety equipment, gloves, you know, safety glasses if needed. We probably won't need shovels or anything like that because the holes will be already dug, but sturdy boots, obviously, you know, you don't want to be messing up your feet. Hand tools, I mean, don't be disrespectful using them. Don't be like throwing them at people or, you know, throwing dirt around. Volunteers, so really Boy Scouts, they follow this buddy system, which is pretty important. Just make sure nobody gets lost. So no matter where you are, you always have to try and have at least one other person with you, just so in case something goes wrong, you have another person with you. And always let people know where you're going when you're going somewhere, just so like if something does happen, they know where you were going or, you know, where you might be. And the EDGE method, so explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. That's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on with my Eagle project, trying to teach the younger scouts and all the other scouts in my troop about, you know, the process of an Eagle project and, you know, installing signs and stuff like that, and how to be safe, how to do it efficiently, how to do it the right way, basically. And so hopefully they can learn something from that experience. And we will also bring water, snacks, food, and stuff like that, so if people get thirsty or hungry, they won't have to, you know, suffer. Back to the signs. All the signs look pretty similar. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
If we could, before we get, for the record, Greg Berger, Trails Coordinator for Carson City. I didn't get an opportunity to introduce Christopher, but I just wanted to mention that he came to us looking for an Eagle project, And it was very serendipitous because he had a particular interest in Carson River Canyon. And right at that time, our ranger, Curver, was looking to do some signage back there so that we have locations identified for dispatch when there's problems back there. So it was very timely. And then also I wanted to mention that Christopher's advisor with Scouts is Daniel Webster, who literally wrote the book on mills of the Carson River. So we have a historical perspective that's very helpful to us. So
That's also one of the references I used for writing stuff about the mills.
Yeah, I think this is a great, one more really good scout project. I mean, the city has really benefited from a number of scout projects, and I think this is another excellent example of a project that's going to really help open space. Do any of the other members want to, Mark? Okay.
First question, are all these signs going to be on open space property?
Yes, they're gonna be basically right on, there's like the main road where the railroad used to go, the V&T Railroad. They're all gonna be pretty much right on that.
Okay. That brings up the second question. Have you been to the V&T Commission regarding these signs?
As in where we're gonna be putting them?
Yeah.
Yeah, we, before we even started working on the project, we went out there, we got all the mileages and the coordinates for where the signs are gonna go.
That's not what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, it's on open space properties, or they're off of the road. And so we didn't go to the V&T Commission for that.
Oh,
Within the lease line of the V&T Commission.
Well, we'll have to look into that. We may have to contact them.
Because you do know that, I don't know if you're aware, I'm president of the historic V&T Trail. And we've been trying to deal with the V&T Commission, and they give us a very hard time. So you may want to talk to the commission before you start putting up signs.
Okay, we'll make sure.
yeah.
Christopher, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for doing everything that you're doing and taking the time to become an example to every single young man in your troop and probably those around you that you don't even know. I know it takes a lot of work to become an Eagle Scout, and I'm really excited for you. So thank you so much for doing all of that. I think your project is fantastic.
Thank you.
And it will help, hopefully, it'll get through every commission you need to get through. Because you're right, the history in that canyon is amazing. And the more we start to share that with the public, the more it opens it to like a park-like quality. So kudos to you, young man.
Thank you.
Okay.
I echo everything that Mary said. Thank you for doing this. How long do you think it'll take you, just out of curiosity? Because you said you'll get the holes bored first, so I'm assuming you'll go out and mark the locations of those, and then another day or something. So what is your timing and schedule?
I'm not 100% sure, but it shouldn't take more than a couple weeks, because once we get the holes drilled, it should only take like maybe a day or two to get all the signs put in, if that.
Okay. Thank you.
I love Eagle Scout projects. I'm a retired state ranger, and we had them all the time, and I love that program. And hopefully Greg gets to go to your celebration when you get there after the project. You scored big time. So you need to make sure you give accolades to the crew that goes out and drills your holes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have been out there for 6 months
Oh, yeah.
digging the holes. So that's huge. So make sure you somehow acknowledge the fact that those guys have saved the whole project. A massive amount of work. But history is really a cool subject. It's always great in your generation that you visit that history to see. And how many mills were down there is phenomenal. So thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing the finished product.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for a good presentation and a great project.
Thank you.
Okay, so Moving on.
Mr. Chair, just one
Yes.
comment.
Okay.
Could we maybe get pictures just when it's done to come back and say, this is how it went and all went well? Perfect. Well, just, yeah, when it's installed and finished, it would be fun to see some history of that. That would be wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
You have pictures of the old mill site?
I don't have, or actually,
You don't have to, but when you report, it'd be nice to see some pictures.
I have a couple pictures in the slideshow, but not of all. I can.
That's okay, that's not an assignment, you're okay.
Oh, actually, the pictures are in there with the sign.
Yeah.
So for each sign slide, there's a picture.
Good job.
Okay. Thanks again. Okay. Moving on to item 5B for discussion only, review and discussion of the Prison Hill OHV area monitoring report and updates on the Prison Hill OHV area. Greg Bergman and Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record, Open Space Manager. So the Prison Hill OHV area monitoring report was completed this year in June by Greg and Georgia, our previous senior natural resource specialist before she departed. So this is the second year that we've been doing this monitoring, started in 2020. And we'll continue to do these reports year after year, just tracking any work that's been completed on the ground, as well as providing updates to you. And then most importantly, we have some of these routine photo points where we can take the same photo year after year and monitor change as it relates to natural resources, vegetation, recreation, all of those things. So there is a lot of work that was completed in 2022. I'll let Greg go through that laundry list of items. In addition to everything that we've done, we have completed everything that was proposed as part of the various grants that we had for the project through NOVAC, our partner. So all major work for the OHV area up to this point has been completed, and the city's worked to close out our stormwater pollution prevention permits as well. So as of right now, we've kind of brought the project to a close for what was proposed, and I will let Greg go into what specifically we did out there.
So for the record, Greg Bergeron, Trails Coordinator. So when we started the project work in 2019, that area was an attractant for illegal dumping, for graffiti. There was a proliferation of highly erosible user-created trails because travel throughout the 950 acres was unrestricted. And so with expertise from NOVAC and grants from the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicle Commission and the Recreational Trails Program, we underwent a project to make some enhancements down there. And so those include minor adjustments to the OHV area boundary to enhance safety and reduce trespass on private property, designation of 3 open ride areas and an MX area for a total of 47 acres, so reducing unrestricted riding from 950 acres down to 47 acres. And then we implemented rules requiring that vehicles remain on trails elsewhere throughout the property. Creation of a trail map that is downloadable to a mobile device via a QR code, implementation of regular park ranger patrols, and timely response to illegal activities like dumping, graffiti, and vandalism. We have very, very few issues with dumping or vandalism or I should say graffiti anymore. So that has really been curtailed significantly. We completed a Section 106 cultural survey, placement of a kiosk sign with welcoming information, rules and regulations, maps, and room for notices. Especially important in the staging area where placement of a portable toilet and a loading ramp in the staging area, creation of a tot lot and a beginner area, both adjacent to the staging area, installation of jack rail fencing around the staging area to control speed and enhance safety, placement of signage and fencing throughout for wayfinding and to control and direct use, We implemented several erosion control mitigation efforts, including 52 check dams, 3 rock line ditches, 16 lead-off ditches, 2 earthen containment basins. We created filters at the entrances to 2 of the technical routes to enhance safety and reduce impacts from user-created escape routes. And when I'm talking about on the technical routes, those are the rock crawler routes. And so rock crawler group, a local group, actually helped us to figure out how to build a filters that essentially creates an obstacle that is as challenging as anything in the route. So you have to have the equipment and the skills to enter the area. So we're eliminating the issues with under-equipped, under-skilled people that go in there and get into trouble and have breakdowns and things like that. We decommissioned and reseeded 17 erosional sites and trails totaling 1.7 acres. And we constructed several new segments of more sustainable trail. And then, of course, establishment of photo monitoring points so that we can monitor conditions of the area over time and see if we're seeing improvements or problems or issues, and then address them appropriately. And so we believe that we now have a more sustainable recreation area in a more family-friendly environment. We have buy-in from partners like the Friends of Prison Hill, Pine Nut Mountains Trails Association, Nevada Off-Road. We've had support from the BLM. The U.S. Forest Service is looking at our project as a possible benchmark for their planning for their projects. And several federal and state agencies are using the area for their internal training. We have the Nevada Outdoor School using the area for training for youth, and we think that's very important because if our youth, or if we can train youth in the proper, proper safe methods and how to operate, ethics and things like that, that's going a long way to protecting our areas in the future. We also had an event there. It was a trials event. Trials are the bikes that they're kind of a quiet motorcycle that they use the granite for the granite areas for kind of hopping from rock to rock. It's kind of fun to watch. But we had that event there last spring, and they actually left the area cleaner than they found it. So managing an OHV area for a small municipality like Carson City, which is extremely unusual, we're one of, if not the only municipality of our size that, or actually to be found anywhere that manages an OHV area. It's challenging, but I think that we can point to a number of successes. There's always going to be issues that need to be addressed as we move forward to managing that area. But I think that the difference between what it looks like now compared to what it looked like when we started is significant. And I personally am proud of what our department and open space has done in the last few years to improve that area and to make it more sustainable for the future. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yes, Susan.
Greg, thank you. This was really good, and I really do appreciate the pictures and the before and after, because I think that we've come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
I also was struck with what you said, the reduced unrestricted riding from 900 plus acres to 40. And again, my thinking is people are going to, whether you manage it or not, or have it or not, as a designated area, they're going to go. That's just the nature of people, and to provide an area for the community, I think is positive. I know that we had a public comments, and I understood it to be in that area. So this report is very good for the public, and so it's public information. Can we provide that link for that report so others can see the good work that you all are doing?
You mean the monitoring report?
Yeah, the monitoring report that's part of our board packet.
So because it's part of the packet, it goes online as part of our agenda. I think it even becomes kind of Googleable at a certain point. So if someone were to Google, Prison Hill monitoring report, it would bring up that agenda packet. So it's all publicly accessible.
Excellent. That just helps support and that there is progress being made. Thank you.
Greg, my husband and I went out there Saturday, and my husband he was riding out there in the late 60s. And as he said, it's always just been a complete free-for-all, just a madhouse of disaster. And he was so impressed, as was I, how much work has gone in there. It's so nice out there. And I know, like you said, it's just a work in progress because it's such a unique area that things will come up, that we'll have to deal with. But just congratulations for really doing a wonderful job on the erosion projects and tightening everything up, narrowing it down, closing things off that shouldn't have been opened. And it was very impressive. He was shocked. So
Okay, well, thank you.
it's hard to shock him too, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that. I guess you had a big re-grand opening Saturday, right?
We did, and I was going to talk about that a little bit in my trails report, but I can address that right now. So, yeah, it was a grand reopening event. We had NOVAC, the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council, who helped us through the project. They were in attendance along with the mayor and Supervisor Schutte. We did a ribbon cutting. We had a really good turnout. We had a number of our partners. And we had a rock crawler demonstration, and then we led a tour of the new Toad Rock Loop, and we had over 30 people that were on that tour. We had sheriff's office was there, and I think everybody that was there had a great time. There were some people that came from out of town, some people that came from Reno, and they were comparing that area to Moon Rocks, which is a BLM OHV area, and they just were so thrilled to see how well managed this was, in compared to Moon. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to say anything against the BLM, but it's a much bigger area. But Moon Rocks does have has some significant challenges, and they were pretty impressed with what we had down here. So I was pleased with the event and the comments we got, and it was a good day.
You should be proud. You've done a wonderful job, and I know Moon Rocks, and it's managed like, Prison Hill was managed before, which is not managed. So you did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I'll echo the comments that the other members. And I also kind of like to add that, you start driving around in some of our back roads, and people are really tearing things up. And if we can get this area as a place where people can be taught how to, act responsibly in the rest of our public lands, it's beyond what you're just doing on those acres that we particularly manage. So I think that's an important part of this whole look at OHV myself. So I'm really glad to see that. So, Mark.
Me and these buttons don't get along really. Carson City needs to acknowledge the fact that it's a national example of what's going on here with the trail systems and this OHV, and of a very small community that voted a tax on themselves, and those dollars have just gained benefits. And what you and the open space did is you engaged the OHV community to do this. It wasn't a Parks Department project. It was the OHV community came in and said, you need to do this, 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 and this. So you took the group that uses it to develop the site rather than the expertise you don't have. So it just makes it that much stronger for the commitment that these groups are always going to have for that. Was BLM there to share this story with you on your grand opening? Just a question.
BLM was invited, and they had something else going. I can't remember what it was, but something else going on Saturday, so they weren't able to attend.
Well, I will pick on BLM for that, but because it was you took on that responsibility with part of that conservation easement, and that was a big deal. That area would remain OHV, but as soon as you got there, you knew it was out of control. And Carson City brought it back into one of the best sites probably in the country. Like you said, it's a national example. And then I had a question of who are the Friends of Prison Hill? I've never heard of that group before.
So they're not an official like 401, what is C, organization, whatever. They're kind of a
501(c).
loose-knit group of rock crawlers locally. They have a page or on Instagram, but I did want to kind of follow up on one of your statements. You were talking about our partnerships with the OHV groups, and so there were compromises that were made.
Sure.
And the groups that we worked with have they agreed to compromises, and they have upheld their part of the bargain, and been very good about avoiding the areas that we did not give to them. So we're pretty happy. We're very happy with that. I mean, of course, most people that use OHVs are not necessarily a member of an organization, but those that are have been very good to work with, and the rock crawler groups in particular, and they've been very good about sticking to the areas that have been designated.
And then events is nothing but tourism and $1 in the community. So it's not only a site for recreation, it's a site for future opportunities for this community to gather funds in tourism too. So I had one other point, I can't remember, but accolades to you and the whole open space and the crew that works there to do all this work. And the money was there to do all that, and the grants were there to do all that. And then, that was my comment, is thanks to Polaris now, half the people in town have a trailer with a Polaris 4-wheel vehicle that costs more than my car on the back. So it's changed the dynamics of the backcountry, critically changed it for free access and a limited time to get to the same spot. So now they have a place to go learn and play and have discipline's part of that. So thanks. Just a comment. Good work, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely partnerships.
Okay, Greg, thanks a lot.
Thank
All right,
you.
moving along to item 5C for discussion only, review and discussion regarding the possible creation of an awards program for the Open Space Advisory Committee to recognize groups or individuals who have made a contribution to the open space program. Lindsay and Vice Chair Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer, for the record, Open Space Manager. So as you mentioned, this was an item requested by Vice Chair Kimbrough. But I think the idea is that it would be lovely as a group to be able to recognize some of the people who have made significant contributions to the open space program through the years, whether that's past OSAC members of the community, past members who are involved in the Carson River Advisory Committee, and others. And there are some award programs within the area, like the Andy Adlax Award, that could be used as an example to develop something. But with that, I will turn it over to Mark and let him chime in with kind of what his vision was.
I've had a lot of thought about this because I thought it'd be really simple just to say, let's do an awards program. It's been 2 months later and I'm still working on it. So there's a little history that was involved that I went to the Parks Foundation to talk to them because they do an award program for one person, I think, a year on the wall that's falling apart. They actually have to change it and move it and put a whole new wall in now somewhere else, which they're still working on because it's falling apart and they have no way to fix it. So there's that award program. So I didn't want to compete with them. So when I met with them, they envisioned a fund set in the foundation that would gather private funds to pay for these awards, and that we wouldn't create competition with their awards. So we'd make sure that however it's working with theirs, we wouldn't create competition for time of the year or what type of award it was for, so they could still do their program. So to gather funds privately, and there just happens to be the treasurer for that foundation is the mayor. So in my discussions in there, she said this, because I said, I think the city should pay for the board awards for leaving the board. A simple plaque that doesn't have to be fancy or expensive for everybody that serves a full term on any board. And every board I've been in Carson City, when I left, I had a plaque. So I thought that something was up, that you couldn't have one for the open space, because I've been on the Planning Commission, and then I was on the Carson River Advisory Committee, and there was awards in RTC. So I've been on several boards, and every one of them gave us a plaque. But like Jennifer told me, maybe somebody paid that out of their own wallet, which I didn't know that happened. So there's a quandary here. So, and what was mentioned a long time ago is, well, it isn't in the budget. So for the board members. Now, the other program is a way to bring a higher profile to this committee and this community, is give awards out like the Watershed does, the Andy Aldex. And it brings attention to all the cool things happening, and it's a chance for 15 minutes of fame that you get in the newspaper or an article just to talk about your program. Plus, it gives credit to people that disappeared and did some really good work, and nobody ever said thanks, on the way out. But I think it strengthens the open space program and raises even Parks and Rec, because it really represents them, these awards. So I don't know how I've been a fundraiser for many years for many different nonprofits. Raising money to buy somebody a plaque is not an easy task. I mean, there are people that would do it. I would do it. I'd give it the first, I'd say, well, I'll write the first check, but there's things that usually have a higher reason for giving than a plaque. So I struggle with that. So I know open space has a budget versus Parks and Rec has a budget, but when my point about the mayor was, she was going to take some action at one meeting to allow the city departments to have opportunity to buy plaques. Now, where that went, I don't know. I didn't follow up with that. And I didn't want to circumvent comments or thoughts here before I even did that, to whether to go to the mayor and find, can we give, I couldn't believe we left people like Bruce Scott left here after that many years, and we didn't say boo, other than some verbal comments given to him about a chance to give him accolades, and as when you do an award, you give him 3 minutes of all the good stuff they've done, at least. And some people are in the awards, some people aren't. They'll put the award in a box, some will hang it on a wall. So it's always, they didn't do the work for the award, but it's always nice to get credit for the work that you've done, that somebody saw what that was. So I don't know what to do about, do we want to put it in a nonprofit board and try to raise funds for it somehow? Or go back to the city for the board presentations, but then see if open space can put it in their budgets out of that pretty large budget to give awards, just maybe 3 awards a year out of the open space budget for those, instead of forming a nonprofit fund for plaques. So that's where I'm in a little quandary and look for comments. I think that's enough opening comments to at least have an idea what I was looking at.
I'm ready to press the button. I like the idea of award. I like the idea of recognizing people who have contributed to the community. I would go for, let's not make it hard. Couldn't we, is there a legality maybe that, can we put it as a line item? A plaque or whatever that award is, just as a line item, and then we work on developing criteria of what the recipient would, get. We could, all that can be done because there's awards already given, it sounds like, or there's not here, but you could start somewhere, develop the criteria, we can determine in once a year and we award it, maybe at the joint parks meeting so that there's a lot of people. But I would guess that the people we're going to award it to have been volunteers. And we're always commenting about all the money that the volunteers save us. Well, let's take a couple of those hours and just buy them a plaque and give them the recognition in order to thank them for their service. So I would suggest or recommend if we could work on some criteria to develop, and I would be happy to help you, Mark. I'm sure, any of us, and then if it could be put as a budget line item, when we approve the budget next time, have it up front and be visible. And that is my recommendation.
I actually did
Uh,
have.
it's like-
sorry.
You started out asking the question whether there's a legal problem with
Yes.
this, so we thought maybe we'd have Ben comment on that first.
Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'm not really involved in the budget process. I think that Lindsay or Jen would probably know more than I. I'm happy to research anything, legality wise, if there's, an issue with using the Question 18 money or anything like that. But I don't know off the top of my head, but I could help find out.
Jen, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I think I'm trying to wrap my head around what we're trying to achieve, and we don't want to duplicate efforts with the Parks Foundation. I totally get that. We have a new volunteer coordinator who's hopefully going to grow our whole volunteer program in general. So is it to acknowledge members of the Open Space Advisory Committee, volunteers in general? The Parks Foundation does do several awards. They do the Volunteer of the Year, Volunteer of the Years. They acknowledge a local business that's contributed to the department. I think there's about like 5 or 6 awards, and don't quote me, but that they give out every year. And I know they're reworking that, and I know the mayor is working on something larger citywide that obviously we will participate in as well, which we may want to see how that folds out and how we don't. So we could maybe complement that, I'm not sure. But I'm just curious what we're trying to achieve. As far as the legalities, it's really a purchasing requirement with NRS. It's a plaque for public display. There's certain requirements with city money purchasing for that. We can work through that and make sure that we're compliant. I think in the past, when it was things for staff or other issues, it got kind of muddied with how that kind of went down. So I think that's where that conversation probably happened.
But I
But
think
we can
that's a
work through
great
that.
point to build upon. Maybe we need to have that information, or I would need to have that information so that we aren't duplicating, but the ones you listed, to me, from the way Mark described it, it's different. Oh dear, it's different.
You're like the rest of them.
I do the same thing.
Because it could be, people who have served on the board, or it could be others who have, done something different, or hours of items. So it would be nice just to see what's out there, and then maybe this could complement it.
Right, and I'm wondering also if it might be something that our volunteer coordinator could create and develop it as part of like our volunteer program to acknowledge those people. She'll know who have the most hours, who are those go-getters, and the ones we need to acknowledge. And maybe we turn that into an annual, barbecue or, whatever, any way to add on to that. So it could turn into something like that if you're looking for the volunteers in particular.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, we go to scales like Muscle Power, GBI, the Kiwanis, the River Wranglers, Carson Watershed. Those aren't the ones that you usually, a volunteer coordinator would award. They're the people that work for them and that they report them. But these groups, like GBI has worked on the OHV, I guess, and then, but some of it they're paid, some of it they volunteer, sometimes they show up for trainings. And then the OHV group, the Pine Nut group, Jeff Potter. I mean, it just goes, Jeff Potter's on the wall already. But I think it's a different game here. So that's why I struggle with this, that first there's the people who leave the board should have a plaque. That's one. The other part is the giving acknowledgement to extra help. So there's two things that's going on. And the one that the NRS that was thrown at was, and it's the same with the state, you can't buy a plaque for a state employee. Same with the city and the county. So we bought the machinery that makes plaques, and we made our own with state parks. So we didn't have to deal with paying somebody to make a plaque. So, but those are employees, paid staff, not volunteers. So there's two stories to that. The one's the volunteers, and we weren't competing with the foundation after my discussions with them. It wouldn't compete with them. But this whole idea of collecting funds that way, and it just more difficult for me to get in my head.
Yeah, and I think we can work through those details. I think we can try to keep it as simple as possible. I am not a fan of plaques. I'll just tell you, I have a whole box of them in my garage. I really appreciate it. Some people love it. I usually take where we get like a picture, and that's what we've done to acknowledge former members, something that they were really passionate about. We did that for the mayor when she was on the park commission and all the members that had gone off, whatever the open space or park that they were so passionate about or area that they really helped with. And we got them a plaque or a picture in a nice frame, and then something to acknowledge their participation, but something that they might enjoy putting up in their home. So there's always definitely ways to do it, and we always want to acknowledge those people for volunteering and those service. So I completely agree with that component. But we might want to see where the Parks Foundation, it sounds like they're reworking their effort. The mayor has something going on, just to see what they're doing so we can try to not, I don't want to duplicate any effort, but if we could piggyback on something someone else is doing, that's always great as well.
That's what,
So permission to see the mayor would be wonderful. See, I don't want to go see the mayor just because of politics unless this board agrees with that pursuit.
Well, I can just check in. I meet regularly with the one of the deputy city manager, and I can just check in with her and see where that program is going, and I can report back to you guys, and then we can kind of go from there, if that works.
it kind of seems like this process has already been started. And then if they could just not forget the open space.
Yeah.
We just need to be, included in there.
Sure.
That would be the easiest.
Absolutely. And the Parks Foundation they're called that, but they're supposed to support our whole department and our whole vision.
Sure.
And that's obviously an important component of it. So, but I know they're trying to regroup and figure out where they want to go with that. And Mark is right. The way they were trying to acknowledge people, it is falling apart, it's weathered, and it needs to be reimagined. So perhaps when they solve that, maybe we could join that effort. But I don't want to wait years and years to get something going either. So I recognize that. So if you want, we can check with the mayor's office and see what the status of that is.
That would be the board awards.
Yeah.
From the mayor, not the other program.
Well, I think she said each department would be participating in something. So it could maybe be where. I just don't know that there's a vision that's, been expressed to us. So I can find out more about that and report back to you on that piece.
That would be good. Well, the last vision was is that she wanted to award every award. And she had something already made up that she was going to, so she did every award for every department for once a year. So I don't know how that'll fly, but,
well,
so that's an idea where she was going with it at that point. So I hope it changes. So I said because you're taking them out of the neighborhood. If you're in the fire department people like to show up for their awards. And if you're in Parks and Rec, the Park and Rec people, but you don't usually get the whole city to show up for an award, but maybe she changed that in her program. But she had medallions that she had printed up. So let me know what you find out.
Well, I'll find out more on that. And then if you guys want to think more on what maybe a vision based on this conversation is, and then we could include our volunteer coordinator if needed, and we can go from there. But we'll definitely make sure the people that serve on these boards are properly acknowledged, and we can handle that. We'll figure that out.
Can there be discussion about a line item like Susan was talking about?
Yeah, we can cover that. It's not a problem.
Cool. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have that in as agenda item for the next meeting. Oh,
I can add it in my director's report and update. That way we can update both boards, if that works for you. Okay.
any other comments on that item? Thank you, Jen. Okay. And we are at 5D for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for an official property name for 7 open space properties located throughout Carson City. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So we have a formal naming process that we're required to go through for all of our open space properties. And many of you might have remembered the process we went through last year when we named several of our properties for significant Washoe tribe names. So going through our list of properties earlier this year, I made a list of any areas that had not been formally named. Some of these areas have kind of a colloquial community name that everyone refers to them as, and those were included as potential recommendations for naming. But because we have this formal process, I wanted to close the loop and throw in these remaining properties that still needed a formal name. So within your packet, there's a few items, specifically a map that shows the different properties and where they're located, as well as some inset maps that show more zoomed in on that particular property. And then I put together a survey that went out to the public for 2 weeks that provided a picture and just some background information on the 7 different properties that we were discussing. And we did receive a variety of responses for those properties. So I figured we could just go through property by property and discuss them. And I'll start by just kind of going through the 7 and what our staff recommendation was. And then we can discuss, some of the results that we got from the survey. So the first property is located at the very top of Ash Canyon Road. This was a property that was acquired through the Forest Legacy Program. It was one of the first Forest Legacy Program acquisitions in Nevada, which was pretty amazing. At that time, that particular project, as far as the grant was concerned, was called the Ash Canyon Gateway Project. And I thought that was kind of an interesting name and represented the Forest Legacy history for how we acquired that property. So that was staff's recommendation. But we did receive quite a few different ones, so we can discuss those. The second property is located directly adjacent to the Eagle View open space in the Ash Canyon area. This was acquired through Oplima. It came to us from the Forest Service. So because it was directly adjacent to Eagle View open space, staff's recommendation was just to call this Eagle View open space as well. So we start to build that contiguous corridor. The third property is located off of North Kings Canyon Road, so in the Kings Canyon area. This is another one that came to us from the Forest Service through Oplima. Because it's in the Kings Canyon area and located off of North Kings Canyon Road, staff went with North Kings Canyon open space. Let's see. Property number 4. This was a property kind of in the Timberline area, just south of Lakeview. Another one that came to us through Oplima from the Forest Service. This one, upon visiting the site, staff noted that there was a lot of manzanita growing at this location, and it's a beautiful kind of viewshed of the city. So staff's recommendation was Manzanita Hill open space. Property number 5. So this is a property located at the bottom of Ash Canyon, directly adjacent to the Wellington Crescent neighborhood. This particular property was a fee title acquisition back in 2012. So for this one, staff's recommendation was Ash Canyon open space. Ash Canyon's kind of a patchwork of different ownership, but between Public Works and the city, we do own kind of the bottom portion of Ash Canyon. The 6th property, this is another one that came to us from Oplima, from the Forest Service, as well as an additional chunk of land that was purchased in 2013 as a fee title acquisition. This is the Sea Hill area, includes the famous sea. So because everyone knows this as Sea Hill, staff's recommendation was Sea Hill open space. And the final property is what we know as Buzzy's Ranch. This was purchased using state Question 1 funds. And again, this is one that everyone colloquially already knows as Buzzy's Ranch. When we put in the new trail with our SNPLMA funding, we did make the decision to name that trail that goes through the east side of the property, Buzzy's Ranch Trail. So staff's recommendation was Buzzy's Ranch open space. So in attachment number 3, I have outlined all of the different responses that we received from the public related to what some of their ideas were. I thought there were some good suggestions in here, and would be curious to know your thoughts, and if we want to take any of those suggestions over what was voted. Of course, the people who voted only had access to what staff's recommendation was, so they didn't see other great ideas that people had. So with that, I would take any questions, or we can get into discussion.
I think this all came out when I was out of internet range for 2 weeks, so I missed out on all of this. I am a little disappointed that we did not go to the tribe this time and ask for their recommendations. Was there a reason for that?
Oh, yes, let me clarify that. So when we went through the naming recommendation with the tribe, we handed them a map of all of the properties that were unnamed within Carson City open space. And what they came back with the last naming round was everything that was particularly significant to them. So they've already had an opportunity to weigh in on everything, and these properties that are remaining are ones that they didn't have, significance or interest in being part of the naming process.
That makes me feel much better. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just open up this way. Do any of the members have alternate names? I'm sorry. Well, we could do that if we need to, but I was gonna, if people only have like one or two, they have an alternate suggestion, I don't think we necessarily need to go through them one by one.
I had comments on all of them, so.
Then let's go through them one by one. Okay, number one. Go ahead, Susan.
I like the Ash Canyon. Gateway to me has a different meaning, like it's at the beginning of it. And there were a lot of comments from the public that said, kind of the same thing. Gateway doesn't reflect the natural beauty, or Gateway. So I also was looking at the words open space. And I know that a lot of the other names have open space in them. So so one question, is that the official name, like Eagle View Open Space?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I saw that reflected in a bunch of the comments, and it made me think of something that I had never considered before. So yeah, basically every open space property that the open space program manages, they all have that moniker of open space at the end. I think it's a way to celebrate open space and kind of show that, it is part of the open space program. We still struggle with people thinking areas belong to the BLM or the Forest Service. So I think it is a way to differentiate ourselves. And I had never thought before that people maybe didn't like that. And so some of the comments did indicate that people either thought it was redundant or not interesting or whatever. But I think from a consistency perspective and a way to, delineate open space and celebrate open space and represent that it is our land and, not BLM or whomever, I think it is a good way. And a lot of times people shorthand it, they don't always say Golden Eagle open space. They might say Golden Eagle or Eagle View. So I think it naturally gets shortened, but all of our signage and maps and things like that does have, the full name. But I was curious to know what the committee's thought on that was, just since it was a comment that came up several times.
So where I was thinking then was like, well, if we have the word open space, it would be Ash Canyon open space for consistency. But then I started reading all the other comments and going, well, that we're just into that non-consistency. So I liked Viewcrest, looking at the picture, knowing where this is and how high it is. I like the Ash Canyon. I would just have a different word than Gateway, and my recommendation would be Viewcrest. So, and if we wanted open space on that, I appreciate your reasoning, because that does help support that it is open space. But that would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Any other comments on this? I would make one comment that I rather agree with Lindsay, that I think having open space as the name is a good thing. People are taxing themselves for these properties, and I think the more we can make sure that people understand that, yeah, your taxes are going for something concrete, that they can really see something here. And I understand the view that kind of gets long, but I also think Lindsay's right. People will just shorten it, and that'll be that. So it's just a couple other words on a sign at some point, and I'm fine with that. But I would prefer that we keep the open space name for these properties. Mark.
I think I only made comments on two. I struggle with Gateway too, so I just, Gateway means it's the beginning, and that, to me, that was the end of it, not the beginning. So I tried to come up with something else, because the destination for a lot of people is Hobart, which is in the state park, but I couldn't come up with the right words that flowed really nice for a name with using the word Hobart. I tried to put state parks in there too, and I don't like what I wrote, but, so I'm just willing to accept anybody's compromise there, but the word gateway didn't make sense to me. That's truly the big comment.
Okay, so Susan, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to move that parcel number 1 be named Ash Canyon Viewcrest Open Space.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Well, Susan, you're on a roll. Number 2.
All right. I would recommend, because it is adjacent to the other parcel, the Eagle View Open Space, unless there's really something different, and I didn't hear there was anything different in the explanation that it, was separated some way, I would recommend the naming being Eagle View Open Space.
Comments? Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, thank you. All in favor? Okay. Number 3. Okay. Do we have any comments on number 3?
North Kings Canyon, the north to me is, I liked Kings Canyon North open space. I couldn't tell you why exactly, but the name of it is Kings Canyon, and then it's north. But that would be my recommendation, but I'm comfortable with the other.
Well, the one comment that I would have on that is that North Kings Canyon could imply a formal name, like West Fork of the Carson River is a formal name.
Okay.
So maybe if that's what you're getting at, then that makes
sense.
some linguistic sense to me.
Exactly. Okay, then I would support naming parcel 3, and I'll make the motion North Kings Canyon Open Space.
Comments?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Number 4, Manzanita Hill Open Space.
So I was looking, all the comments were a location, and Manzanita Hill, while I like the name Manzanita and it fits with the criteria for naming, which the naming was the flora and the fauna and the things on the hill, I also think it helps to name where they are, and I would support the naming of Timberline Open Space.
If I might clarify, the reason why we didn't go with Timberline, as opposed to some of the other areas where we're talking about Ash Canyon or Kings Canyon, is Ash Canyon is a feature. It's a canyon that's called Ash Canyon. Same with Kings Canyon, it's a feature. Timberline, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't lived in Carson City very long, but I believe it's just the name of a neighborhood. Is that correct? So that doesn't quite, I get what the respondents were saying, not knowing all the different details, but because that isn't necessarily representative of the geology, history, natural resources, it's just reflective of that neighborhood, it doesn't quite meet the criteria that was contemplated for open space naming.
Mark?
My only comment is if there was ever a fire, you destroyed the name of your open space. But that wasn't a really great one to say, but it's true. It would become cheat grass open space at that point. But it's a reality check when you name it after a plant.
A question, is Manzanita Hill Where did I see that? For some reason I had Manzanita Hill. Because that's not a place. It's just Manzanita, and that's where that's the background of what you were talking about.
Correct. Yeah, just upon visiting the property, this is actually one that staff had never been to before. It's just kind of a random property that's, up in that area. So after visiting it, because that area was burned with the waterfall fire, a lot of the timber is actually gone, and typically what comes back after that is Manzanita. So it's a very Manzanita dominated open landscape. There's also lots of granite up there, and we had considered different names involving granite. So staff were just kind of taking a stab at something, given that there wasn't an obvious choice like some of the other properties, and that was just something to kind of recognize, some of the flora that is up there. And I guess from this perspective, that Timberline, the neighborhood, was named for the concept of, timberline, which is actually a natural term. We could go that direction, but staff were thinking that it was a little bit too on the nose of naming it for a neighborhood.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I just know from growing up here, it's always been Timberline. It's just always been Timberline. Oh, and like, oh no, houses are being built up at Timberline.
That's how I remember it as well.
Is that how you do?
It's like, that's always been Timberline up
like
there.
Lakeview, yeah. But that's, no.
Well, that's great context, because like I said, I haven't been here very long. So if that's, kind of more of a regional something that, people called it that even before it was a neighborhood, maybe the neighborhood got named for that kind of colloquial name. So I don't know that it's a direct, violation of our policy. So certainly would be open to others' thoughts.
Well, what if it's kind of a pass left between two developments? Can we come up with something for that?
Timber View works because anywhere if you see a tree somewhere, it's like Timber View.
But I mean, because it's open space now, it's not going to be developed between two developments. I like Timber View. I like that, Mary, because it's not going to be developed.
It provides sweeping views of the city, and there are certainly a few trees up there that are left. So yeah, I mean, you can see quite a
Somebody
ways from that
suggested
location.
Eastern Sierra front view. They didn't say view, but Eastern Sierra front open space, but.
That was Bozo who did that.
Who's Bozo? But I mean, that's actually not bad either.
No.
But Timberview sounds good to me. We don't have anything with that. And that's a open space. It's a buffer between. How about buffer between two developments?
Any other comments?
I like, since there's historic, like I said, you struggled with that, but it's everybody in town, if you say that it's the name of it, they'll look right up there where it's at. So it's like, it's more practical, makes more sense just to name it that.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to task us with anything that was done wrong to name it. If they did, you change the name, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if we have the view that was called that before there was a house up there, then to me that doesn't create a problem or a precedent at all. So, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion and see how it goes here. If I get,
Okay.
we'll split it halfway down. I'm Timberline. I make a motion, we call it Timberline Open Vista.
Open space,
Yes. What did I say?
open view. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have any comments?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, we are now. That was number 5, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, number 6.
No, we're
No,
on
5. I'm sorry, number 5. Okay. Okay, this is the one located at the base of Ash Canyon Road. So recommendation for Ash Canyon open space. Do we have any comments?
Comment, I see Jost here and it came from the Jost acquisition. Why I would recommend calling it Jost Open Space.
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So as part of our naming policy, it has kind of a line in there that the property shouldn't be named after, a family or a person unless it was either donated by that individual or if it, represents longstanding history of the property. So the Jost Ranch, does have some history here in Carson City. Not so much that particular parcel. The bulk of their ranch was located a little bit farther down Ash Canyon, adjacent to the Quill Water Treatment Plant. So they do have that historical perspective, but for that particular parcel that's actually, kind of separated from where their lands were in the Ash Canyon area, it didn't seem like using the Jost name to represent that history made quite as much sense.
I have a suggestion. Why not name this piece the Ash Canyon Gateway?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think to clarify the Ash Canyon Gateway, I think the reason why that was contemplated as part of the grant is that it's if you're coming from the opposite direction, coming from Tahoe and the upper portion of the Carson Range, it is the gateway to Ash Canyon. So from our perspective, it's all the way at the top, but if you're coming from the other direction, it's kind of the gateway. So from what I could read in the grant documents, that's why they had contemplated that name. But I think everyone's right, including the comments we received. It is a little confusing, makes sense the other way. So I thought it was a neat name. Maybe that is something we want to contemplate for the lower parcel. Yeah.
I like Ash Canyon Gateway. And it doesn't say open space after, just gateway.
It's still saying. Okay.
I guess to clarify the whole open space discussion, there are a few properties that don't have the open space afterwards, like Silver Saddle Ranch, for example, Washoe Wetlands. So we do have a few full stone wetlands, but for the most part, the overwhelming majority, they all say open space. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but generally something we're going for.
Okay. So Mary, would you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we name it Ash Canyon Gateway.
Open space?
No.
No. Okay.
But I'm flexible.
Okay. A second. Comments? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay. Now we're number 6. Okay. Okay, on the east side. Okay, recommendation for Sea Hill open space. Do we have comments? Yes.
I have a comment. I liked the word preserve, Carson Hill or Sea Hill Preserve, and because it was acquired through the Public Lands Act, and again to protect and manage as a natural area. So we're preserving the area. So that I recommend naming it property number 6, Sea Hill Preserve.
Comments? Okay. Is that our motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
Thank you. Okay. Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay.
You should just have a meeting with Susan. Good. A lot of thought went in.
Okay. Number 7. A recommendation of naming this one Buzzy's Ranch Open Space. Any comments? Susan?
I have almost the same thing as before, and again, I'm okay with the open space or not, but I like the word conservation because it says what we're doing. So Buzzy's Ranch Conservation Open Space. I know that's a lot of words, but again, this one to me, it was acquired the same way to State Lands Conservation and Protection Grant money. And so that shows what we're doing. So
What about the one that says Buzzy Ranch Wildlife Refuge?
that would work as well.
But,
I mean, I would.
but it's still it's a cattle ranch. It's not really a conservation area.
If I may, Lindsay Boyer for the record. So, certainly, it's not, it is a working ranch. It does have lots of conservation value. We have the Ducks Unlimited wetlands out there. But I agree that, by calling it Buzzy's Ranch, wildlife area or even a conservation area, that might just send a little bit of mixed signals because it is, very much an actively working ranch, and our intention is to, continue that. So I guess, yeah, that's my only two thoughts. And another thing that I had thought of after I put the survey together is oftentimes people refer to it as Old Buzzy's Ranch, which is kind of fun. And I hadn't put that in there as a suggestion, but another potential discussion point because that's often what it's called by just the public. So.
Other comments?
I agree with Lindsay that when you call it conservation area, it labels it to a different level of management. Okay. And that's why conservation areas have these descriptions of how they, so I would agree with her that try to avoid that word maybe, and then it's certainly, when it's a working ranch or wildlife refuge is tough, so I like Buzzy's Ranch because that's what it's been called since the day that I was here in this town and when we bought it, and it was kind of a cool name. Okay. I thought it was one of the cooler names in Carson City, Buzzy's Ranch. So.
It sounds like it could be a motion.
Plus, there were some really cool stories about that ranch and the family, so it kind of made it cool. I'll make a motion to call it Buzzy Ranch Open Space, not Open View, Open Space.
Okay. Second, okay. Discussion? All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Easy.
That was easy.
I'm glad this wasn't a joint meeting.
Okay. We are at agenda item 5E. For possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the 2021 annual report of the Activities Open Space Advisory Committee to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was very excited to put together the 2021 annual report for all the things that the Open Space Program had done last year. I'm a little later than I normally am bringing this report to you, so I apologize for that. There's no real due date, but obviously we're nearing 2023, so I will try to get this to you sooner next year. But I just wanted to go through some specific highlights that I thought were unique that we accomplished in 2021, because a lot of this is, routine maintenance management tasks, but there's some real individual projects I wanted to highlight. So first off, in the grants section, I just wanted to put on the record that, our department either has been awarded or is an identified partner on 11 different grants in the year 2021, which totaled almost $10 million. So I think that's really something to celebrate. Going into projects and some different things that got accomplished in 2021, I wanted to highlight the completion of the Lincoln Bypass Trail. That was a huge one we had been working on for several years. And the Kings Canyon Trailhead project in that same area. We kicked off that project in 2021, and of course we wrapped that up earlier this year. So that was a huge accomplishment, something that was very much needed for the open space program. Other unique projects in 2021, we had the Prison Hill fire. So the fire that was started kind of in the North Loop area was a lightning strike fire. So that was a very unique and interesting project that we jumped on right away, developing restoration plans, and we did complete aerial seeding of that area just at the end of 2021. And then it's not contained in the report, but in 2022, we were able to go out and see, so much life coming back, and maybe not so much those specific seeded species, because it takes a couple years to really see them get going, but we were pleased to see just how easily Prison Hill was bouncing back. So that was very exciting. We also celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Quality of Life Initiative, and that was really exciting. And, we developed a whole department-wide celebration that included activities throughout parks and open space, and then all of it culminated in our celebration out at Silver Saddle Ranch, which was a lovely day last October. We had tons of people come out, and that amazing cowboy poetry that centered around open space, and the Sierra Sweethearts performing. So it was just a really beautiful day to celebrate open space. So I think that was a wonderful thing. Of course, we had our usual projects that we got up to, like the sheep project, doing cleanups on the river. We were able to do a few different other restoration projects with the community, so got volunteers out to actually plant some baby plants in the ground. That was the first year that we had really done that in a concerted way. Usually we're just out seeding, so that was exciting for the public as well as staff. Developments on the river with Eurasian water milfoil and continuing tracking that. Some of our Canada thistle biocontrol projects. So continuing a lot of the long-term projects that we've been working on. And then lastly, before I take any questions, I just wanted to highlight on the record that with our volunteer hours, which we've been talking about today, they in 2021 volunteered over 3,600 hours, and that equated to about $93,000 that we were able to save by using volunteer time. And we acknowledge that coming out to volunteer is using everyone's precious time, and we're just so appreciative of the people who come out and volunteer with us. I want to say thank you on the record, and also just say thank you to all of our staff. We have a really small team, and we get a lot done with that small team. So I just want to say how much I appreciate and thank the help that I get from my staff. So with that, I would take any questions.
Nice report. Obviously reflects a lot of work and very well put together. I appreciate it. And I'm sure the supervisors will appreciate this. It really is a great reflection of what Carson City's accomplishing with the tax funds. So with that, if any of the members have any comments, questions for Lindsay? Yes, Donna.
Phenomenal report. Catching it from Mark, I can't do this button anymore.
Stay away from me.
It's a phenomenal report, and Jen, take a note. This picture on page 2, that's the one I want. That picture is an award winner. Who took it?
That was actually a Juan Guzman photo that I stole from years past. So
You're
thank
kidding
you.
me.
Thank you to Juan.
I will. Now, it's phenomenal. The whole report's phenomenal. It's beautiful. So, this just highlights what this little community does. And I have friends in Reno that are just green with envy with what we accomplish here. They're starting to catch up, but they got a long ways to go yet. So you did a beautiful job, all of you.
I'm sure we'll keep running faster than them, but any other comments? Mark?
Yeah, I had actually talked to Lindsay early before the meeting that she did a really nice job on this because it's a presentation with with a lot of nice pictures that show the story better. But what I would have put in big capital letters at the bottom of those grants, how much money total you guys gathered up, so they can see bottom line like that. That's a lot of money in it, and you need to really express them when you're talking to them that there's nothing that tells you to go get those grants. They need to understand. And I know you can't blow your own horn in front of them, but somebody needs to help you get to them to let them understand that the staff incentive and not incentive, their own, they need to be, I'm trying to look at the word, there's a million of them.
Bless you.
Your initiative to go out and find these grants. You guys are really good at that, and you know how to do that, and it's critical for this type of success. So they really need to understand that it isn't the open space just doing their normal day of business. You guys went out and got these grants, and when you get these grants, they come with a lot of paperwork and a lot of work. So they're not free, but you've been able to get the grants and do the work to do it. So you're not asking for money you don't have time and staff, and you guys will work 50 hours a day to make sure it is met. They need to understand that. And your volunteers aren't free either. That takes a lot of staff time. That's why you have a volunteer coordinator now, because you guys were absorbed with, you get a volunteer project, but you're out 20 hours that week working on the project with them and stuff. So those points need to be made so they understand that's a lot of staff credit needs to happen here. And so blow your horn as often as you can, and they'll get the picture of what this program has done to this community. Huge, and it's really hard to show that picture, and you've done a pretty good job of doing that. So that's enough for me to say.
I second that.
I third it. And I'd like to add too that, I mean, I just marvel at what you three do. This is such a unique and blessed city. And I know it's not just Reno around here that is green with envy. People, when they hear, they can't comprehend. And Mark's right, you need to have a page, maybe the first page, that in big, bold letters, and then help us get money so we can give you plaques.
Jen doesn't want a plaque.
We'll give her a picture.
Picture. Okay, with that, it sounds like we might have somebody who would make a motion. Yes, proposed motion.
I'll make the motion. I guess I'm looking for somebody to say the words here. So, you made copies. Oh, well, that's an easy one. I move to approve the 2021 annual report of activities of the Open Space Advisory Committee to be presented to the Board of Supervisors.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay. Looks like Jen's getting ready. Okay. Okay, item 6A, Director's Report. Jen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. To just tag team on what you just said on the report, I mean, the fact that we get so much done is amazing. The grants are amazing, but I just really want to take a particular time to acknowledge Lindsay's leadership for the team. I mean, she's really not only been so supportive of the staff, but she leads by example. She's out there working with them. She puts in nights and weekends and extra hours, and she never, asks for any extra recognition or anything like that. And she's wonderful to work with. Everybody loves her, but she really deserves that acknowledgement. And she's taken this team to the next level, which is just so wonderful. And it's because of what she's done that we've been able to get a volunteer coordinator and get the support of the Board of Supervisors. And her team loves her, and they're just so hardworking. So I just wanted to say that. So back to my report. She's a rock star, and she's never allowed to leave. So anyway. Her team is amazing too, but we always are able to kind of highlight them in a way, and Lindsay doesn't always get that acknowledgement. So I just want to make sure that she knows we really appreciate her. Just a couple things that I want to point out. I'll be super fast. We do have a date for our board retreat, so I just want to make sure that's all on your calendars, December 16th. Thanks to Lindsay for getting that doodle pull out and making sure trying to get so many people to agree on one date was pretty a feat in itself. So, so we're working with a third party consultant to kind of put that together. So it'll definitely be worth your time, and hopefully we'll get a lot done that day, and we'll have some fun at the same time. I will have a location and more time and more details as we get closer, but we are working on that. We did have a resignation on the Open Space Advisory Committee, and then the reappointment for that position will go to the Board of Supervisors on November 3rd. So I just wanted you to be aware of our time frame for that, and we'll let you know how that goes. I'm not sure how many applications. I haven't received an update from the manager's office, but when we do have an update for you, we'll make sure you guys all know.
Just before we move on to the next one.
Sure.
People, if you know of people that you think have some qualifications that we don't necessarily are strong on the board, please encourage them to apply.
Absolutely.
I've reached out to a couple of people myself, but I think we have some real strengths, and I think we have a couple places where we could use some help. So
wonderful. Thank you for that. And the manager's office, just so you know, they handle the recruitment process and the appointment, so we don't have to do anything, which is wonderful. And then we'll take it from there after they're appointed. And then just the last thing, I wanted to let you know that the Board of Supervisors updated their boards and commissions policy, and I just wanted to reiterate to you the attendance policy for our boards and commissions. So it's 75% of the meetings that you're required to attend. They don't do the excused, non-excused absences anymore. So if you're just attending 75% of the time, which all of you are, I just wanted to remind you of that and see if you had any questions on that. But you guys are all great, so we don't have to worry about it. And then just the last thing I had is all of our full-time positions are full right now. First time I've been able to say that in a long time. And then we still have tons of seasonal openings, so anybody looking for part-time work, seasonal work, park maintenance, open space, youth programs, sports, lifeguards, you name it. We have all kinds of fun opportunities. That's it.
questions for the director?
I'm going to take this moment to ask, but first accolades for this happening, this leash thing that you've spent years on. You got it through us. It's just so great that you got it out. So I'm curious where it's at with the Board of Supervisors, because a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of everything went into put that together.
You're right, and thank you. And it has been years in the making, and we are doing some behind-the-scenes prep for that, gearing up for probably a November-ish item to the Board of Supervisors, maybe early December. I don't have an exact date for you, but we have to do some kind of behind-the-scenes work just to make sure everybody's comfortable and really educated on what's in the policy before we bring it forward.
Huge for getting it to that point. That was a lot of work, and it wasn't an easy job. Right?
I can report that the Nevada Humane Society has reviewed it. They were really excited about everything, and they didn't have any edits in addition to what you guys already had. So it's nice that we have, their support moving forward as well.
To back up that, could you please kind of give us a heads up when it's going to the Board of Supervisors, because I'm sure there will be some flack.
Absolutely, and we could use your support and advocacy for that as well.
And are you planning, after it passes, hopefully, a big educational push? Because there's going to be a need for that. And and then in your report, I just have one question. Was the memorial policy passed without any changes?
The memorial policy was passed. There were a couple minor changes, but it's posted on our website and it's ready to go. We can send a copy of that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's under like plans and documents on our website. So you can print out, there's a fillable form for the memorials policy.
Okay.
But that did pass.
I was looking for where we could find policies on the website, and I was having trouble finding
Yeah,
it. I'll look again.
It's not the easiest to find, and we're working on that as well.
Yeah, because I was going to ask where people would be able to find the dog policy once it comes out on the website, because
Yeah.
that's going to be really important.
We will, and we will have a big education component once it's approved. We're going to be positive. And there is going to be a fiscal impact with approving that plan, because we're going to need to update our signs. We're going to need to be consistent. It will require additional dog waste containers, things like that. So we'll need to build that into our next year's budget. So that'll be kind of a continuing effort as we move forward.
Well, and add a lot of education into the budget too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Jen? Okay, thank you. And we're moving on to 6B, Trails Coordinator Report. Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Greg Bergeron, Trails Coordinator. So we'll start off with the Capital of the Tahoe Trail. And I wanted to note that we were talking about grants. So this project is being built primarily on U.S. Forest Service lands and state park lands, with a little segment on private property. But Muscle Powered actually went for the Recreational Trails Program grant for this, and they managed that grant. So kudos to them for getting it and managing it. Match for the grant was provided by their volunteer hours and also by some funding from the Open Space, from Quality of Life Initiative funds, which was approved by OSAC some years ago. So they've been putting in hundreds of hours on this trail in the last year, and you'll notice in one of the photos our chairman is there with a hard hat on, operating a drill. They've safely, right? Yes. Yeah, the very first picture. Yeah, I'm pretty not very good with Photoshop, actually. So, but anyway, the two bridges they were working on are absolutely stunning. They're works of art, and that was led by Ward Nose, that project, the bridges. And we show a couple of other volunteers. Jeff Potter, who is one of the people that one of the original people behind this trail was Jeff, and he no longer lives in Carson City, but he has come down a few times to help out, and we definitely miss Jeff. So anyway, we hopefully will have this trail completed next spring and have a grand opening sometime late spring of 2023, and that will be very exciting to finally get that connection, that first single track connection to the Tahoe Basin completed. So we're looking forward to that. Ash Canyon Trail. So another, this was a very small grant that Muscle Powered acquired from the Caesar Foundation, Caesar's Tahoe Casinos. And that went to fund creation of some wayfinding signs, which if any of you have been in Ash Canyon recently, you will notice a whole bunch of new wayfinding signs on the trails up there. So very helpful for people that don't know their way around up there. Prison Hill non-motorized trail. So the Odyssey Trail, another Muscle Powered project. This one is just a hand build under the guidance of Paul Sinnott, and they completed part of the trail last fall, and he's going to start working on the trail again any day now that the weather has cooled down again, and they'll work as long as they can until the snow flies, if we ever get any. Desert Peach Trail, which will provide a connection from the 5th Street Loop trails up to the North Loop. We did acquire a Recreational Trails Program grant funding for that. Our bids came in a little high, so we're looking at some possible solutions to that. Paul Sinnott and I actually walked the alignment again. We found that by increasing the grade by 1%, we were able to cut out 40% of the length of the trails. So yeah, just 1%. So we went from 7.5% to 8.5%, which is still not that bad. So I think we can do some things to bring down the costs, and we're gonna definitely get that done. So Prison Hill Trail West, another big project, a SNPLMA grant, a $2.4 million SNPLMA grant. We were awarded the grant. Wow, I mean, has it been a year? It's been close to a year, but we still are waiting for the funding instrument. So some staffing issues apparently with the program, but as soon as we're ready to go. As soon as we get the funding, we're ready to go with a scope of work to get a design and engineering firm on that. Prison Hill motorized trails, I think we've talked about that pretty extensively already, but a couple of photos show our summer intern, Casey Fox, doing some vertical mulching, and our open space maintenance coordinator, Jared Whitaker, operating machinery up there, doing some decommissioning. And then the historic Virginia and Truckee Trail. We have another committee member, Donna, in a photo here, along with the historic Virginia and Truckee board. We had a day where we went out, our staff and the board, and we put up about 35 wayfinding signs throughout Carson City. And those signs were funded by the Donna, help me, the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, right? Yeah, so. The funding? Probably a year to 18 months ago, maybe. Okay, I can get you that. Yeah. We also had an additional interpretive sign that was placed on the V&T Trail by the Lakeview Grade, and this one was another donation from the Nazir and Mary Ansari Foundation. This one talks about the historic Virginia and Truckee Trail project, kind of shows where the planned alignment is from Reno down to Mendon and out to Virginia City, and then also has a more localized map showing the trail, well, the current and desired alignment through the Lakeview Grade area. And that one is posted at the trailhead just off of Coombs Canyon. Events. So on June 4th, we had National Trails Day, which is a ribbon cutting. The mayor helped us cut the ribbon for the opening of the Kings Canyon Trailhead, along with the opening of the Lincoln Bypass Trail, another muscle-powered project. And we had great attendance for that. And that was another fun event that included a interpretive hike led by muscle-powered volunteer, Joanna Foster, and one of our AmeriCorps members, Amy Brigham. And then we had, just a few weeks ago, we had the Nevada Regional Trails Skills Workshop, which was funded through a Recreational Trails Program grant and was put on by the American Trails. And our department assisted with planning and teaching at that event. And you can also, in that photo, you can also see another photo of, or a picture of our chairman who attended the training. And that went very well. We were able to train a number of people from our region in a number of trail building, construction, and maintenance techniques. So helping to support our volunteers regionally. And then upcoming events, Adaptive Mountain Bike Workshop. We actually held that a week ago on a Friday afternoon, or Friday morning rather, and I'll have some photos for the next update, but that event went very well. We had 4 participants that were, I really overwhelmed with what an electric adaptive mountain bike could do for them in getting around. And it was great for us, too, to get feedback on our trails. We've been trying to build trails that are accessible to everybody. And we have a number of trails that are, in fact, very accessible to adaptive mountain bikes. And we really want to keep promoting that activity. I'd like to have another event again. We also had a couple of the participants that went on our Fifth Street Loop trails, which were designed to they were designed to be able to allow an adaptive mountain bike because we built them at 4 feet wide, more challenging than some of our other, like the trails that we have in the Carson River area. These participants went from the 5th Street Trailhead down to Silver Saddle Ranch, out on Buzzy's Ranch Trail, and back around. And then we had the 2 other participants that went on the loop trails, and they liked the challenge of those. And I was riding on my bike in front, and I kept looking around thinking they're not going to be there, and they were right behind me the whole time with big smiles on their faces. So I thought that was a wonderful event. Telling me to hurry. Yeah. Prison Hill OHV area grand reopening. That was another event that we just held this past Saturday, and I'll have some photos of that on the next update. But it went very well. We had a number of attendees, and I think I already spoke to that earlier when the question came up. So I won't go into more details on that. But coming up soon, we have the Transportation Trails and Tourism Summit, November 8th, 9th, and 10th at the Renaissance Hotel and Spa in Reno. It's hosted by NDOT and the Nevada Office of Outdoor Recreation and Eastern Sierra Trails Coalition and the Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation. Registration is only $20 for a 3-day conference that is going to be very, very good. I know our department is participating in at least 3 of the presentations, but there's going to be a lot of great presentations from a lot of great people regionally and even from out of state. We've got people coming down from Oregon and from California to do presentations. I really highly recommend, for $20, if you can register for 1 day or all 3 days, this is going to be a really great conference. So, and then coming up in April, the American Trails will be hosting their International Trails Summit in Reno, April 17th to 21st. And that's another exciting opportunity for our region. It's been years in the planning. We've had to postpone it several times because of COVID, but now it's finally going to happen. I wanted to point out that kind of cool, we have a Northern Nevada local, actually from this area. Koo Stevens will be the keynote speaker for that event. Koo is the one that organized the Frank Quinn Remembrance Run in Carson City at Stewart Indian School. His grandfather, Frank, escaped from the Stewart Indian School several times and went back. He crossed the Carson River and went back up over the Pine Nut Mountains to his home near Yarrington. And so the memorial run, it memorializes his escape from the school there. So that will be a culturally interesting keynote speaker for the International Trail Summit. And again, I hope that, recommend that everybody attend that as well. So that's all I have. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Greg, this is really, again, it builds upon everything that the team has done. You guys are small, but you're mighty. You're just awesome. One quick question on the Ash Canyon trail signs, which I really love because then I have a direction in life and where to go and I won't wander aimlessly. What do the colors mean? Is it the ease of the trail, or like some are black?
It's our signage master plan that we developed a number of years ago. It recommends a color scheme so that when you're on a trail, like say you're on Bob's Trail, it's one color.
Got it. Okay.
And that's all it is.
No, that's perfect. That makes sense. So thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Great report. Beautiful. You do a great job, Greg. I don't know how we get anything done without you.
Thank you.
And one question, because I was going to check on it. Are we having Trail X talks at the TTT?
Yes, we are.
Are they full yet?
No, I don't think so. And in fact,
I need to get busy.
There's going to be an extra place for a presentation if needed. So, if you have something, we can get it in.
Yeah, I gotta get busy then, or get somebody to get busy.
You might email Greg or me, and then we'll get it into Matthew and let him figure out the agenda thing with this thing. So, Greg on his own time, most likely, has taken a leadership role in this conference. So, and these 3 program sessions, and he's gathered a lot of people to help. So, again, and I think it's important with Carson City to share that experience and your expertise and your knowledge with the bigger trail community. It's not just about Carson City because it's all connected. So accolades to Greg again.
It's quite an agenda. I'm looking at it. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
Used to be the bike board one, and we combined the bike board one with this one. So it
And
worked last time.
And Member Kimbrough has worked tirelessly on the TTT as well. It's a lot of planning and a lot of effort on behalf of a lot of people.
Okay, thank you. Great job. And yeah, people get a chance, go visit these bridges. They're burly, 210 PSI design for snow load. I mean, no problem getting your horse across these things. They are not gonna fall apart. And kind of an aside, just share, the fellow that I'm working with, Nate Harrison, it was interesting because he designs bridges for NDOT, and this is the first bridge he's ever built, and he was very happy. So, great job, Greg. Thanks again. So,
Thank you.
moving on to our next 6C, Senior National Resource Specialist and Open Space Manager Report. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So just a few highlights that we've been up to on the Open Space Manager, natural resource side of things. And I don't believe we had an update to you specifically on these items since summer. So we did our annual bird surveys out at the Buzzy's Ranch Trail and Riverview Park in May and June of this year. Those were surveys that we started doing before we built the new Buzzy's Ranch Trail as a way to quantify migratory bird densities and if they're changing as it relates to adding recreation at that site. So we'll be doing those surveys every year. This was the first year we brought in volunteers. We worked with 3 very talented birders in the community who were very excited to help us with our surveys. And we found that by bringing in people who are very talented, good birders, that we're actually getting very comprehensive data on what's out there. Staff are decent birders, but we lack the ability to really fine tune the bird calls, and that's so much of bird surveys. So moving forward, we're definitely going to be working with these volunteers or others who are interested because it made a big difference, and we had a big spike in our data, which is always nice to see, but maybe a little skewed just because we didn't have that same talent in previous years. But in general, the bird data out there is looking very, very good. A few education and community programs I wanted to highlight. So this year was the first ever Carson City Source Water Assessment Day. So this was a program actually spearheaded by Public Works, and they brought in several different partners like River Wranglers, Open Space, CWSD was there, as well as several others. And the idea was to teach the community about source water protection. So we had the event up at the Kings Canyon Trailhead, and the photo here is everyone gathered at the intake that's just below the waterfall. So this is the area where water that comes down from the waterfall goes into our drinking water system to then, go on and get treated at the Quill Water Treatment Plant. So this was a great way to engage with the community and really start educating about the importance of water quality protection. And the kids got to do some really fun water sampling. So it was a great event, and we'll definitely continue doing that in the future. Another great event that was held this summer was the High Watermark mural unveiling. So for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a new mural along the freeway multi-use path right at the 5th Street overpass, so under the overpass, but you can see it from the multi-use pathway. It's across the channel. But it's a really beautiful mural, was done by a local artist, Deborah Fong. And the idea was to celebrate floodplains, floodplain protection. So this was an event in conjunction with Public Works and several other partners. It was a tabling event, so people got to learn about how to protect themselves in the case of a flood, the fact that Carson City does flood, and the importance of preserving all of our floodplains, which we've done a great job doing. So if you haven't seen the mural yet, it's beautiful, and it was a very well attended event. Other updates related to the Carson River specifically. So we had another successful season of doing noxious weed abatement. So Jared Whitaker, our open space maintenance coordinator, was busy all spring and summer treating our annual and perennial noxious weeds, as well as some kind of nuisance and invasive species we get along the trail. We also worked with a contractor, and that helped us get more area covered. So we'll continue working with them in the future. We spent a lot of time in the Empire Ranch Trail corridor. There was a lot of overgrowth and things like that, so we brought in GBI to do some corridor clearing in addition to some of the noxious weed treatment that we were doing. Also in the river corridor, so the pollinator garden project that Georgia Basie had started before she departed has been in full swing. So the project, for those of you who don't know, is a part of the Sagebrush and Prisons project. The previous coordinator over there had actually approached us about shifting gears over there a little bit. Traditionally, they grow up sagebrush seeds into sagebrush seedlings, and then they give those to BLM or whomever. It's a contract process. They don't give it to them, but they grow them up for the purposes of restoration. But the coordinator over there thought it'd be great to grow up some pollinator plants. And since we are Bee City USA, we thought that that was a fabulous idea. So the inmates over at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center have spent the last year or so growing up locally collected native pollinator plants. And myself and Sam Essig, our new natural resource specialist, had an opportunity to go to the prison and see all of their growing in action. They have an amazing garden out there. You could see how much pride these folks had in the work that they were doing and how excited they were to learn, about new plants. We did a whole presentation about the pollinator gardens and what they were for, and being a Bee City USA and the importance of pollinator habitat. So that was just a really moving day. And we're actually currently in the process of planting those plants in the ground. So we are working with a few school groups, but we're also holding weekly volunteer events that Chelsea's handling. She's been doing Wednesday afternoons. So if anyone is interested in joining us for putting some of these pollinator babies in the ground, we would welcome some hands. We're creating pollinator gardens along the Buzzies Ranch Trail, at Carson River Park near the fishing pier, and potentially down at Morgan Mill as well. So we want to spread that habitat throughout the river corridor. Another update, back in early August, staff held our annual River Cleanup Day. This is something we've done the last 5 years. It's just an opportunity for staff to get out on the river and steward it while also doing some bonding. So we pick up trash and usually not map noxious weeds along the way. This was the first year that we've had hardly any trash. We walked from East Silver Saddle to Ambrose, and it was super clean. So clean that we're going to move to a different reach of the river next year and start spreading that effort out. But it's always a fun day to get out on the river. A sheep update for you. So this year was the 16th year that we've been running the sheep project on the west side of Carson City. So focusing on both cheatgrass as well as just overall fuel reduction using the sheep. So this has been a really successful project. The community loves it, and we have it pretty well dialed at this point. So they typically graze from April to May, and we did lead an interpretive hike this year as well, and that was really well attended. Folks were super excited, got to get out on Sea Hill, watch the sheep graze, and hear from us, what the project's all about. So that was really, really lovely. A few other updates. So the Forest Legacy parcel that we just named, what'd we name it? The Ash Canyon Viewcrest Open Space. So a lot of us staff had not spent a whole lot of time on that property specifically. Some people who are newer had never been out there. So at the end of September, all of us staff went out, had a field day where we went up to the parcels and just checked them out, looked at things like the fuel loading up there, see if we need to do any stewardship projects or anything like that. And it was just a great day to get out with staff. And we ran into a few friends while we were up there as well, some members of the committee. So that was kind of fun. But it's a gorgeous property, so I recommend you guys all take a chance to get up there at some point. Related to the Kings Canyon Road, so the dirt road portion of that area, we completed that project in March of this year. So that was a long-term, several-year project. We had gotten some grants to go through and get the road repaired because it had some pretty significant erosion and water damage from the floods of 2017. So we did go through and get that completed. It's now passable by high clearance vehicles. I know I've gotten a lot of comments from folks saying, it's still kind of rough up there, but the goal of the project was to get it passable and get it, safe for emergency vehicles to get up there, but not necessarily a sedan. But it is repaired, so we can start to close that project out. And then as far as land acquisitions, I did have an update related to the Old Woods Ranch. So we had an item come before the board as a agenda item a couple months ago where we were talking about the Old Woods Ranch project specifically and getting everyone up to speed. So at that time, the grant through the Forest Legacy Program had been applied for, but we hadn't heard if it had been awarded yet. So I can now report that has been awarded. And that's for the whole project that was put in, which includes Old Woods Ranch, but also 2 other properties that are in the area, but that we're not specifically a part of. So all of that is sort of pending approval of match, both on our end, but the whole project wide. So I know Nevada Land Trust is applying for some funds that they can use for match across the project. So that will influence, how much match we go before OSAC to ask for. But that will be kind of the next step to formally, ask for the match to be applied for this project. So that'll be forthcoming. And the family's also to a point where they're kind of coming together as far as the terms of the conservation easement are concerned. And that would be brought before the committee simultaneously as we're asking for match, so you can kind of see what they're looking at. And we'd provide a little bit of overview on conservation easements at that time as well. Just a few more updates. We had the pollinator parade. This was the 2nd annual, so we held it back in June. It was a culmination of all the different pollinator education events we had throughout the year. So we're going to continue doing that parade. It's pretty fun, and we had quite a few kids and random community members come out this year. So that was really neat to see. I had talked about the Prison Hill fire restoration a little bit earlier, but just wanted to reiterate that we are seeing really good recruitment of native plants up there. This past May, it was just a sea of wildflowers, so recommend you guys get up there this spring and be able to see some of that. And then just lastly, some personnel updates since we all last talked. So I think everyone knows that, Georgia left and that Samantha Essig had replaced her position. You all got the chance to meet Chelsea earlier today, our new volunteer coordinator. So she's up and running. It's been great because she, started the whole program, so she hasn't needed a whole lot of instruction. She's just going for it, which is very helpful. Greg mentioned our recreation intern, Casey Fox. So we've had this recreation intern, or sometimes they were a natural resource intern through Great Basin Institute. That's been a great summer program to have an intern help us out, and they get to learn a lot about open space through the process. So it's a win-win. Kind of a new thing, we rebranded our Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker position into a trailhead caretaker position because what we needed is someone who could really help with opening and closing facilities, and including gates and restrooms, and also just taking a keen eye at our different trails. So we brought on Jillian Hammonds, and she's been working the past few months in a part-time capacity to help out, and that's made a huge difference as far as being able to manage opening and closing of facilities specifically. And then I think as a last update, we did bring on our first ever full-time open space maintenance worker, so Marcus Dominguez, started back in August as kind of someone who's working directly under Jared. So having a full-time maintenance person working under Jared, we're just so excited to see what we can get done in the next year without Jared running around and doing it all. So we're excited to be fully staffed. And the last page is just all the different events that we've had or will have. So with that, I will take any questions. Oh, and excuse me, before I end, Member Martinovich had asked for a budget update, so I just wanted to include that. So the final page of my report includes the document that went to the board specifically as far as approval of budget. So I wasn't sure exactly what you were curious about or what questions you had, but this was the exact, document that they reviewed and approved. So I wanted to include that and would take any specific questions you have about the budget. So.
Thank you, Lindsay. Susan, did you have a comment?
I do. This is a great report, and I had to smile on your community programs and education. North Kings Canyon intake structure. So it goes with what you said. So yay for us for naming it North Kings Canyon. Anyways, so yeah, the budget. I was going to ask you just a couple questions about it. So, looking at the prior year and this year ending in 2022, there was some big jumps in capital outlays. What were those? Like last year's the expenditures were $305,000, and now that's 2.2 million. So, what were those for? And I didn't have a chance to go back to the budget. So.
Just to make sure I'm looking at the same thing that you're looking at.
So like under expenditures, and it says parks capital and open space capital, capital outlay and capital outlay. There were just big differences between the 2 years, last year's and this year's.
So I guess one thing to clarify, and I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but the kind of three different areas here is the three different ways that the quality of life funding is split up. So we have 40% of it goes to open space, 40% of it goes to parks capital, and 20% goes to parks maintenance. So those, the parks capital versus the open space versus parks maintenance, those are the three different, categories of the way that funding is split up. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but wanted to clarify that.
Yes and no. Did we buy something? And I guess where I'm going with this, I'll get to it, is that, so the ending fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2022 is going to be $290,000. At the end of 2021, it was 4.5 million. And then going forward with what was approved for the budget in 23, we're going to have an ending fund balance of $150,000. How does that affect the match, like in these projects that you just talked about, being able to match it? So, last year we had 4 million, or the ending was 4.8 million, and now we're at 150,000. And so what did we spend it on? And I'm assuming we spent it on match or on properties or on things.
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So you'll see estimated current year ending. That's what finance is estimating. Finance estimates that. I'm not sure how, and we're typically not part of that conversation, and they do it off past experience and usually worst case scenarios, so that likely won't be our ending fund balance. It won't be significant.
Okay.
We do have a lot of capital projects, especially in parks, that we're implementing now that have been on the books for a while, so that'll be some expenses for like the parks component. We have a lot of things under construction right now, so you'll see those expenses go forward. But it'll be probably closer to what you see in that 4 million range, because we don't have anything unless we hit a big grant project that's finished up, and then we have our match go through, or we do a land acquisition, like if we have Old Woods Ranch go forward, then you'll start to see that. So those are in the plan, and so finance based it on that, but that's not an actual.
So bottom line is you're not worried
No.
that there isn't going to be money available to do what you need to have it available going forward?
No, I think our budget is very healthy and we're doing well, and we wouldn't have added staff if we weren't confident in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you.
I think as we go forward with Old Woods, though, we do have to talk about what, and other acquisitions as we move forward and as they're presented to us, is we have some other big needs financially, especially water rights. And I think Lindsay and I agree that's a top priority that we need to, especially for Buzzy's Ranch. And that will be a long-term financial investment and a pretty significant one, whether we're able to acquire water rights outright or a lease option or whatever we're going to have to do, but we know we need water. So that's going to be expensive. So to me, that's a top priority as far as big capital planning goes for open space.
Get away. Another subject before you have to come all the way back up. I read something in the newspaper. I got some kind of report. Remember, I mentioned that mural at the rock art hearing. I don't know if you remember me talking about that. I liked it, and it was hardscape. And here you got this beautiful mural going on this wall, which was about the art, not about the rocks, about art. I read something that the new position's already been assigned with Parks, I thought, to start working on that policy for the art along trails. You didn't report on it, so I'm just curious while you're there.
Well, Greg, our trails coordinator, and then Sierra Scott, who's our new arts and culture supervisor, they're going to be working on drafting that policy related to ornamental rocks together. And then we're hoping to present a draft possibly at the joint meeting in December. But that's a tentative goal, just in case we can't get there.
Just the rocks, nothing like this beautiful artwork on that came.
Well, the Board of Supervisors approved a public art policy, the same meeting they did at the memorial policy. So the arts and culture supervisor will be over the public art policy for the city. And that may include, a multitude of different options.
Any other comments, questions, Donna?
Yeah. Lindsay, what's happening with Horse Creek Ranch regarding thistle poles? I mean, it's been, at least 3 years now?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Chelsea and I just last Friday went out to do the annual conservation easement monitoring. So we were out walking the property and taking a look at the pictures. And yeah, the last time we did a thistle pole, we ended up having to cancel the last one that was scheduled due to smoke. And I think that was maybe 2019, if I recall. And we haven't picked it up since then. Part of that's because the ownership changed. And so the new owners were getting in, kind of getting settled, making plans up there. And I think they're super receptive to any sort of stewardship activity that we, think is prudent, which I definitely want to continue with the thistle dig. So I think we're just going to have to spearhead that a little bit more than we had in the past, kind of insert ourselves and suggest that we go ahead and do this at this time. So Chelsea and I already have it earmarked for next July when the thistles start to bolt and they're easier to see to go ahead and schedule that. So we'll be coordinating with you then.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. That was for discussion only. So we'll move on to members' announcements and requests for information. You ready? Tom?
Well, I can say a little bit about the V&T. The signs are up, the wayfinding signs. We do need to get money for arrows, and we do plan on putting interpretive signs all along the trail. So those are the only two things left in Carson City, except someday in the future, we'll get those easements on Lakeview and improve the trail from Coombs Canyon to Hobart. But that's someday in the future, and that'll happen someday. But I do want to let you know, we applied for the pre-application for a grant with Conserve Nevada for the first phase of the engineering studies to put a bridge over the Carson River south from Bigelow, and we sailed right through that. And we will be applying for the actual grant a year from now, a little less than a year from now. And hopefully we'll sail right through that. And we'll start the process of putting the bridge. Chaz McQuarrie and some of the board did a bushwhack out to the site, and it's beautiful, it's perfect. We found the old rail bed, and it will be absolutely fantastic. It's only about a mile from the end of Bigelow out to the site, and there's a perfect. So we're already in scheduled meetings with one of the a fellow who purchased 250 acres of the old Bigelow property, just south of the Bentley property, just south of the Bentley-Kerman tract. And the rumor was he was going to do a big housing development. He's assured me he's not. He's going to put 5 houses on the 250 acres and leave it agriculture. And he said the trail sounded exciting, and so hopefully he's going to be up for giving easement to this county. I don't know, any of you have heard this new Travel Nevada 3D destination project that they suddenly slammed together in, believe me, very short order. It's 6 projects are going to be awarded 32 weeks of a private consultant, and out of those, that 6 projects will become 6 applications for a $2 million pot of money to develop their projects, and they're for destinations in rural areas of Nevada. The Historic Virginian Truckee Trail is applying for that. I have to have it together by October 25th. It's been kicking my fanny. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time to do it, and it's a big complex thing we have to put together. And so I've been working on that night and day. That's why I haven't gotten anything together for the TTT. And so, and because Juan Guzman had a death in the family and he's in Puerto Rico. So it's been kind of a challenge. So anyway, that's what we've got going on. But I think we have a real strong chance of winning this Travel Nevada thing, which would be a real boon for us. So anyway, we're moving forward. Things are looking pretty exciting.
Great, thanks for the update, Donna. Anybody else have anything? Yes, Mark.
I do this, I don't know if it's good, I read the obits. And I was reading the obits about 2 weeks ago, and Kay Bennett died. And she is the board of supervisor without her, there wouldn't be any open space, there wouldn't be any river properties, there wouldn't have been even maybe the tax vote. She was the one that talked and used the word corridor, protecting the corridor on the Carson River, and she had like 200 and some people show up to the meeting with totally opposite ideas about what should be done on the river and the private property issues, which is usually comes up with those. And we were able to form the Carson River Committee, sit down both sides, and I was actually the chair there and helped with the plan, and got the plan together for Carson River, which put the properties on a map with discussions. Then when the open space thing started and the movement for the bill to be, the law, not the law, I guess it's whatever it's called, whatever question it was. So Gabe Pennant started all that ball rolling. So it was sad because she went away and there was nothing in the obit about it and nothing was ever mentioned. But it's amazing how people, the visionary ones that really thought it all up and got the ball rolling, even though she got yelled at, mistreated, and cussed at. I mean, it was actually really nasty. We had some nasty Carson River meetings sometimes, but it all came down to a solution that we need to talk to Congress about, where they sit in with 2 different aspects of protection and work it all out. So I just wanted to bring that up, that sometimes people pass us and we don't even notice that we're the leaders in this at the beginning. And most people probably don't know who Kay Bennett is unless they've been in the city for a long time. And then about a week later, Jim Idell died, and he was the bird guy who did all the bird surveys on the Carson River. He used to go out with the nets and pick them up at night and stuff too. So it's amazing as I get older, you watch the people that were some of the leadership that moved this forward. And that's part of that recognition thing I was talking about, that these people, I don't know if she was ever recognized for the work that she did to start all that going. Because everything you guys talked about today would be part of what she started that going. So I just wanted to make a comment to that on TV.
Thank you, Mark. Susan?
Two things. One leads into the other next one. Kay also was very instrumental in getting the landscaping on Carson Street. When she pushed NDOT at the time, we had some good discussions, and so she was very instrumental in helping that beautify Carson Street as you come into Carson City. So I was sorry to hear that. This might be for future agenda item or dates. Could we get possible dates for next year? And I know it's early, but like this year with February, the holiday, is that meeting going to be on Tuesday? Only, and it's selfish because my schedule's getting weird again, and then we move the meeting from June to July because of the new holiday. And so if we could get those dates for next year, it would just be helpful in moving schedules forward. I want to make sure I'm at 75% of the meetings. It's, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we are on to future agenda items, and when I would, if it's appropriate and you have some information, I would like to hear about water supply for Buzzy's Ranch. Where we sit on that, and I think even if we don't have an answer now, we haven't really talked about that for a while, and I think an update would be useful for that. Also was going to comment whether or not staff has talked about not having a third joint meeting this year, because we've had two. And if we don't really have that much that both groups have in common, maybe we're better off having our separate meetings. I'll throw it, let staff sort that out. I mean, I know we've had this scheduled, but then we scheduled the other one because of, for a very good reason. There's no criticisms here at all, but, if we could drop back and have them separate because we don't have enough common things for, a useful meeting, why don't we not do that? That's my suggestion. So anybody else have any? Okay, with that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, Lindsay Boyer for the record. I just wanted to add, I can't remember if Jen mentioned it specifically, but for one of the next joint meetings, possibly December, if we move forward with that, we were going to bring the draft policy for the rocks. So that's one thing. But to your point, I mean, I think that's something that we've considered because we have had, two joint meetings. The items that are slated for December, to Member Martinovich's point, one of it is the schedule. Typically, we always talk about the schedule at the December meeting, review and approve that. So I'm not sure how we would handle that without a meeting. That's just one point. And then also the fee schedule typically gets reviewed at that time as well. So I don't know. I can talk with Jen further, but just wanted to clarify that that's what's slated as of right now for the December meeting.
If that's where you're going, I'm not trying to second guess you. I'm just trying to throw it out there that,
sure. Yeah.
It's something to consider.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then I guess we're off to item 9, public comment. Do we have anybody on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay. With that, I believe we are adjourned.